Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Jatin, and I'm the user acquisition and monetization manager at TapNation. I'm here with my colleague Mehdi, who is a data analyst at TapNation. And today we're gonna talk about the A/B test process we have adopted at TapNation and how we achieve like quick wins from this A/B test process. We're gonna share all about that. But before that, like a little bit of introduction about TapNation, what we do, and how we do. We are a hyper casual publisher based in France, and we have published like over 12 hit games so far. And we clocked like 500 million downloads recently. And of course, like process is like I'm gonna talk about in the next slide what we do, how we do. Our process like starts with the prototyping. What I mean by that is like our internal team, which is like a motion design team. They publish different prototypes on a daily basis, and we test them internally before sharing them with the studios that we work in a close partnership with. So before giving that prototype to the studios, we have already tested them. We know what's the CPI on that prototype, so we know like the success rate is going to be better than like just working on the game without any historical data or any knowledge about the CPI. Like it just like takes a lot of time and wastes a lot of time if we are just making the game and we don't know what's going to be the CPI of that game. So once like we give the prototype, the studio develops that game, and then we do another test on Facebook and TikTok. And after that, like of course, we register the CPI. And once the CPI is aligned to the original prototype we developed, the publishing team decides like if they want to kill the project or they want to work further on it, like iterate and like add more content inside the game. And the cycle generally lasts for 1 to 2 months. Of course, like during this 1 to 2 months, there are like hundreds of A/B tests we do in this process, which can include like testing different camera angle, testing like the tournament features, and like there are like hundreds of features we test to make sure like we hit our target, which is like retention should be like 30% on day one. And of course, like our creative team also works on like lowering the CPI, which we aim for 40 cents on Android. And once we reach that target and during the production cycle, then we plug in monetization efforts, like adding the ads inside the game, and then we test the LTV as well. And then at this stage, we test like how the profitability of the game is looking like what's the difference in the CPI and the LTV. And once we are satisfied, like we can have a profitability from the game, we publish the game. And of course, like after publish, like we have a complete support from our live ops cycle department, which helps to like adding more content even after the game is published. And now Mehdi is gonna be talking more about the main KPIs that we are working on during the A/B test process.
Hello everyone, I'm Mehdi, a data scientist at TapNation, and I'm a second speaker in this presentation to show you the role of the data to improve our KPIs in hyper-casual games. So the main topic of this part is how can we take advantage from our data of historical campaigns to improve our KPIs. So one of our basic KPIs is the LTV, the lifetime value, is an estimate of the average revenue that a customer will generate through their lifespan as a customer. It's calculated by multiplying the average revenue per daily active user by the retention, which is the percentage of users that we retain to play our game. And in hyper casual games, LTV is normally between $0.3 and $2. In addition to LTV, one of the most important KPIs that we calculate is the ROAS, the return on ad spend. It's a UA metric that measure our profitability from our spending. What is the revenue earned for every dollar spent on advertising? So this metric give us a clear idea about the profitability of the game and help us manage our spending to reach our target. The problem in spending money on advertising is that campaigns are different depending to which country, which channel of publishing, which platform, and we need to know where to spend to gain the maximum of money. So to manage this problem, we need to know the ROAS on each country. More specifically, we need to know. Can you go to the next slide, Justin, please? More specifically, we need to know for example, for a ROAS target of 140% in 1 month, how much do we need in ROAS day one to attain this target? If we can answer this question, we will have the ROAS on day one on each country, and all we need is make a daily spending that make you attain this ROAS. So in the data level, we created an algorithm that take all those information we spoke about, the ROAS targets, which channel, which country, which month, and it will give us how much the ROAS should be on day one. So how does it work? This is a machine learning algorithm that learn from our historical data to predict the future. So basically, the algorithm will be trained on historical data. We know already the ROAS day one in our historical expenses for several games. So the algorithm is in the training will learn from those previous results to make the predictions. And when it's done, we will have a result of ROAS day one in each country, each channel, each platform, and according to that, we can manage our spending to maximize the profit by focusing on countries and channel with high profitability and spend the biggest parts of our money on them.
And when it comes down to improving the LTV, like of course there are two ways we target this problem. One is like of course adding like more content and like developing the product, and the second is like working on the monetization, like adding more new networks and like testing different ad frequency that will I touch upon the later part of the slides. But to begin with, like about the adding the content, of course, like both content side and the monetization side, we add and do everything based upon the A/B test. And the I will talk about like one of our biggest hit, like which is Giant Rush. How we were able to tackle this problem on Giant Rush through product and content. One of them was like about modifying the level progression. So the idea behind this was like when player like actually starts the game, they should feel the progression. And how they can do is like you can see like on the top of the screen, we added like from the end start to the end progression. Like when the user actually starts the game, then there's an energy sign, and then there is a crown. That's where the player is gonna meet the boss, where they actually fight with each other. So the player can see like how far is the boss, and how much stronger they have to become to fight that boss. So basically it's giving more understanding and clarity to the player, like they are actually progressing inside the game. But also like between from the start to the boss, there are like different obstacles we added. Of course we tested this, like what sort of obstacle we should add. Some of them included like adding the wall, where the boss has to break the wall and get past it. And the second thing we tested was among the rock crawling and guess their answer, which was about like giving like a tournament feeling to the players, where they feel like they are competing with other players, although they were not. So it was like a fake tournament feeling. For example, like you can see in rock crawling, where there's a car which is going up, and then there is another car at the top with like a Russian flag. It's basically like giving the feeling of competitiveness, like they are competing with other players, like more like a fake multiplayer feeling. And that's something we saw like helped us to improve the LTV on the product side. Um, And then on one of our title, which is Tipito, we played around on this game with different camera angle. One was like on the top, like where you see the complete character. Like right now, we have only the legs, but we tested like different angles, like what works really well for this game. And then also on our other title, which was Webmaster. The focus here was like really how we can improve the rewarded videos, because more rewarded videos like definitely result in higher LTV. So we added like a bonus level. Like if the player watches the rewarded video, they get to play like a level like which is fighting with like a different characters, like which is also inspired from the Spider-Man. And of course, like one of the another way to increase the LTV was like integrating the shop, where like people can watch rewarded ads to get different characters that they can use inside the game. For example, in Tipito, the idea in this game was to crush different objects that come on the way. So we added like different sort of shoes, you can see Nike shoe and like a boots and different characters, and people watch the rewarded video to unlock all these features. So this was another way we adopted to increase the LTV through product and content. um, and then the next way to tackle LTV is like of course through A/B testing and monetization technique. And how we do that, like of course one of the way is to see if we can add new ad networks. And we did this quite effectively in recent days. One way to do is like of course to partner with the main networks, which is like AppLovin, Iron Source, Unity, etc. But the second way recently we try to do is to do the direct supply deal in specific countries, whether it's Brazil, India, Indonesia, to sell inventory directly to the advertisers, which ensure like a higher ECPMs for us. And but also what we really test through A/B testing, and when we are integrating this new uh, partners, is it like really improving the AppDAO, or what's the impact of the retention? Because what we have seen, some of these ad networks, they can have like a really aggressive ads, they are like not able to quit the ads, or it can have like a negative impact. Like of course good AppDAO is important, but we also see like what's the impact on the playtime and the retention. So this is something we really test through like the A/B test we run. But the second way is like really adding more aggressive price floors. When we are building the waterfall on the monetization side, of course, we want like the highest ECPMs for every impression we sell. But also just adding like a higher floor doesn't guarantee you increase in AppDAO, because what could happen is you're adding the ECPM floor of 100, then you have another of 90, then another of 80. But what's really happening, like you are only getting the more impressions on, let's say, $90 price flow, and not on 100 and not on 80, and they're just sitting idle. So what's really happening over there is it's creating the latency. What latency means is when the network is choosing the network, like which network to give more placements. And if 180 are not really attractive, uh, it just creates like more time for the mediation to choose which network to pick up. And it creates like a lot of time to show ads inside the game. So this is something we test as well to make sure the price flows we are adding, like it's not creating latency. And the second is doing the geo targeting price flows. By what I mean is we group the countries in different tiers. Of course, we have US as the top tier. Then we have tier one, like in that we include like UK, Germany, France, Canada, etc. And then we have tier two and tier three and so on. And we make the waterfall placements targeting the particular geos and the particular tiers. So we have a different waterfall for tier one, different waterfall for tier two, and so on and so forth. So make sure because it's very much related to the previous point I talked about latency. Because if we have like a top flows targeting in tier 4 countries like Indonesia, Brazil, etc. So it will create like a lot of time and latency, and it will like result in just loss of revenue for us. So that's why what we do is like testing price flows for different tiers. And then, like, of course, all of this can be summed up by running the A/B test inside the mediation platforms we use. Like for us, like Max is the mediation platform we use, and they have a feature like where we can run all this A/B test in a real time, and of course monitor the result of these A/B tests in real time as well. Next slide, please. Yeah. And of course, like another way to increase the LTV, like of course we need to add more and more ads, but also what we are really doing these days is like testing totally different type of game ads formats. We know like the key formats are interstitial, rewarded, and banner ads. But out of these three, what extra we can add? So we partnered with some in-game ads platform like Adverty, AdMix, and so on. So what really happens is like the game ads are being shown without interrupting the gameplay. So they are shown in the background without like interfering with the progression of the player, and it just brings like additional revenue stream for us because of course it's not interrupting the number of rewarded ads being shown or number of interstitial ads being shown. It's just like extra revenue stream, and it worked like really well for us. Like of course before implementing this in any game, we run a proper A/B test, like if it's like really impacting any placement, like to make sure like it's not like bringing lower rewarded video or lower interstitial impressions. So this is something we test, but also the retention. Of course, the in-game ads, the idea is like the progression of the player should not be hindered. But to be 200% sure, we run a A/B test, and to be completely confident, like yes, it's not hindering like any progression or any retention or playtime metrics in the game. And the second format we recently starting to test is like audio ads. What it's also like a fourth type of ad format we are testing outside of interstitial, rewarded, banner, and in-game, is like there is like a ad being shown in form of the audio. So it's like a player is still playing the game, and there is like some audio being played, like it could be about Amazon, it could be about Spotify, and so on and so forth. So it's like also something extra revenue we try to generate through our game. But of course, the idea is like it should not be impacting the game KPIs in the negative way. So this is something we test as well through the A/B testing process. And the third format is like about the testing the ad frequency. Like of course we want to show as many ads as possible, but as many ads like doesn't really result in higher up DAO, because what happens is like if you're showing 10 ads for let's say within the span of 2 minutes, it becomes like quite annoying for the player to watch all these ads, and they can like just quit the game after 2 minutes. And if we like monitor this or like do it carefully and show like less ads, but also like maintaining the right balance between the up down, and if we can make the player play for 5 minutes and not just for 2 minutes, it can like actually increase the up down even with less ads. So this is something we test as well to find the right balance between like how many ads to show and what play time to achieve. So this is something is also very important when it comes down to improving the LTV of the game. And it's something really interesting that we worked upon at TapNation for a long time, like building upon the platform to do the A/B test. And this access to this platform is also given to the studio partner. So what we are really trying to do is like, of course, everything we do has to be data driven, but also it has to be transparent. Like whatever we are testing and what are the results and what impact it has, like positive or negative, we share with all the studio partners in real time. So what happens is like the studio, they want to test something, so they go on the platform, they submit the variables, like for example they want to test different camera angle, and all they want to test like when to show the interstitial, like after 10 seconds, 20 seconds, or 40 seconds. They can choose like different variables like that and create the A/B test. This A/B test runs for 5 days, and it's testing like different parameters, like what's the retention day one, day two, and day three, and how it's impacted in different variables. Like for example, if we are testing at frequency of interstitial in 10 seconds, 20, and 30 seconds, so it will show like what's the retention of at frequency in 10 seconds, what the retention of at frequency in 20 seconds, and so on and so forth. But also the playtime, like how the playtime is impacted. And based upon this, we decide like what to actually push inside the game during the global launch. So just to share like some result about the whole process, like how it brought like value to us, like Giant Rush, which is like one of our biggest hits so far, and we have achieved like over 100 million downloads on this title with like up to 20 million plus in revenue. Since the game launched, which was in January 2021, and like I would say like in the span of like 7 to 8 months, we were able to double the LTV almost. And also during this time, the game reached like top one in Android and like in top 10 on iOS. And it was like one of the most played game in quarter one and quarter two of 2021. And of course, like one of the key contributing factor was like the hundreds, if not thousands of A/B tests we ran on this game to achieve this result. And when it comes down to what we actually tested, like of course we tested many things, but like the biggest wins that came was like among adding like a moving gauge multiplier at the end of the game. Basically what it does is like if the player has earned, let's say, 130 coins while playing the game, they can watch the rewarded ad, and they can double this coins, so they can have like 260 coins and not 130. And we saw like it brought us like 14% increase in rewarded video watched. Like players really wanted to double their coins, so it was like something really interesting for us. And the second was like when we added the obstacles, like this is something I talked about in the earlier part of the slide, but also we tested like how we should show the wall break mechanism. Like should it be in a slow motion, or it should be like a fast, or it should be like in what way. We tested like different methods to break the wall, but also the camera angle, like which camera should be used while the user is breaking the wall. Like should it be the top camera angle, or like fps, or so on and so forth. And what we saw, like just adding the top camera angle with like slow motion of break wall, we managed to increase the retention day one by 4%, which was like really interesting for us. And the third, like which brought like a really big win for us, was like in the end of the game, we have the boss level where the user fights with the boss. And of course, like there are different size of the boss that can have like this same size as the user, or the smaller size as the user, or it has to be bigger size as the user. So when we tested like the boss, which is like bigger than the user, it brought us like 2% increase in retention day one, and 4% on retention day three. So like of course, like summing up all this, we were able to like double our updow on day 30. And the same for retention, like we started the game with like 21 retention day one, and managed to reach like 35, 36 retention day one, thanks to all these A/B test and metrics we tested through A/B test. So now it will leave some time for QA if you guys have any questions for us.
The time trend here in this slide, it's we give it to the algorithm to give him an idea about the trend of the time. For example, we have in our historical data, we have the ROAS day one and the total ROAS for each month, and we have, for example, 3 or 4 months, and we need to analyze the tendency of the time to see if it's, for example, it's the ROAS is increasing or is decreasing, so that to take that into in consideration in our algorithm to have a good forecasting of the ROAS.